in practice, what we tend to see is when you can't align your surface and mineral interests, under one ownership, you either avoid,
Yeah.
that severed, or when you can't avoid it, you got to go in and do that kind of pass through type agreement.
Yeah.
What's
So so kind of the reverse analogy I would use is in Texas, where you have the accommodation doctrine and surface use, right? A lot of times, maybe your mineral owner is different from your surface owner. Well, you still have to go out and, get some sort of agreement with your surface owner. Or you're not going to be able to conduct your operations. And here, you just in Louisiana, you're going to flip that on its head, or in other jurisdictions where the surface owner owns the pore space, but there may be oil and gas activity. You're going to want to make sure that you're covering yourself from the other angle, right?
Yeah,
So it's pretty similar, but it's just in reverse.
yeah, but you have to, in these cases with uh, carbon capture injection projects, you don't have that statutory accommodation there where you can say, hey, I can do this. That's not present. You have to secure agreements from that mineral estate, um, to be able to put your project together at least from a abundance of caution standpoint.
Well, so yeah, from an abundance of caution standpoint, most of what I have dealt with in particular is going after fee owners, where it's the same, surface
Sure.
surface and mineral owner. So there's kind of a belt and suspenders approach there, where you can do it, but also those were the landowners who had the big enough contiguous pore space. So that was where it is now, and these projects are expensive. They take a very long time to build. You're talking about, basically the same sort of cost and timeline to put together a large pipeline or an offshore platform. And that's a lot of capital for people to put up front. So the first projects that you are going to see are with the state or these large private landowners,
Mm-hmm.
where, both the minerals
You
and
eliminate that.
mineral and the surface is owned by the same person, and it's a large portion of land, and you can get a pretty clear contract or lease, be it with the state or with the private landowner.
Yeah, yeah. Path of least resistance, certainly.
Yes. So, but I
But
think,
when you have the co-development of minerals, right, that you mentioned earlier, you're having to do some sort of agreement with the leasehold owners, on these large properties, from an oil and gas standpoint, to make sure you're clear there.
I would certainly recommend it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
and I would say, just as kind of a speculative matter, I mean, we do have authority in the context of oil and gas development, as far as drilling through someone's horizon, that you're not going to be liable to them absent damage. That's the Lightning versus Anadarko case down on the Briscoe Ranch, where they drilled through a reservoir on the way to an adjoining property, didn't produce it, and they weren't liable to the mineral owner there. So if somebody wants to be very aggressive, it would simply require bringing the case to extend that to carbon capture. But no, I mean, that's kind of your point about the accommodation doctrine. That
Yeah.
we know what the deal is for oil and
Minerals
gas.
development. Yeah.
And since we're in reverse, yes, it's accommodating the mineral owner. The last thing you'd want in tort is to actually damage a reservoir and be liable for that, to impinge on somebody's right to produce their own minerals would be a problem. And those are so yes. I mean, in oil and gas development, we often secure surface use agreements that are not wholly necessary legally. They're simply,
You want to be a good neighbor.
we do it because it's better than fighting about it afterwards.
It is. It is.
Kind of the same thing here.
I think so. And there's the whole argument of, you can not necessarily, impede minerals development below that, but you, on purpose, but by all intents and purposes, you do, because it's simply the cost of drilling through a plume, right? A CCS plume, right? That's a whole another technical probably component to that development. If you're, say, you've got an existing injection project and you're a mineral, you want to develop your mineral interest below that. The cost associated with drilling through that active injection area has to be exponential, right? If you want to keep leaks and whatever out there, is that a consideration or something that's factored into why you want to try to align your surface and mineral interest and get joinder from your leasehold developers as well?
From a legal and business standpoint, I mean, you're going to want to look out for any potential concern. I don't think that we're far enough down the road that we've really tested that out. Certainly, we'll have discussions around it, and we would sort of scenario out what possible outcomes would be and how you would handle the situation. But I personally have not had to deal with that. But certainly, if as CCS grows and you
Matures.
get more
Yeah.
you get more and more projects going, that certainly is something that's probably going to come up down the road.